Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. Cade Kennedy with you alongside Tyler Riggs, back for another edition of, I don't know what we want to call this segment. I mean, we have made it well known that we're both Oklahoma fans, so I mean, this is kind of one of those spinoffs we'll do every once in a while with some more OU-focused news. But obviously, the big story of the day, Jackson Arnold planning to enter the transfer portal. This is not really a surprise, which is crazy to say, but you kind of had the feeling, at least, Tyler, we had talked about it a while. You had the feeling that one of the two quarterbacks was going to leave, whether it be Arnold, whether it be Michael Hawkins. You got the feeling somebody was going to leave with Ben Arbuckle coming in with even more changes at offensive coordinator, things like that. You figured this would happen. You hate to see it, of course, but you felt that change was happening.
We even touched on before the Arbuckle hiring that, hey, there's a possibility both these guys leave, feeling a little scorned by the situation this year, the kind of the hot potato between them a little bit. So, like I said, not surprising. I think as a whole, the Jackson Arnold experience, super frustrating as, you could see potential at times with him, but you could also see bad decision making. He didn't know whether to fairly evaluate that as himself or what was around him. I mean, so many question marks, and I don't know if we even ever got a full evaluation of the true talent Arnold has because of how OU played out.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I kind of take away from this. When you look at the Jackson Arnold era, if you want to call it, quote unquote, at Oklahoma, how much of it can really be blamed on him is the real thing. Because, I mean, 2023, obviously, he got to have some backup time. We were able to see that in person, even where when everything's going well, it looks perfect. The talent is all there for Arnold. And I do wish him well wherever he goes. I think getting a full reset and things like that, I think he's the great opportunity to play well wherever he ends up at. But just this year, when you have the Seth Luttrell hire that everyone could tell you did not work, I think that broke some of Arnold's confidence a bit, that piled on from the Alamo Bowl, where he had 3 interceptions. It could have had 4 if they counted a Farouk fumble as a pick. They didn't, so 3 interceptions, there's what he had in that Alamo Bowl game. And it just kind of continued to bleed into the regular season, of course, that we had this year. We could talk about Oklahoma's offensive woes as long as we wanted to. We've already done that multiple times on this channel. So all we really need to say is it was bad. If you're an OU fan, you know it was bad. And that's bad is the lightest term I could use, really. But for Jackson Arnold, it's just how much of that was him, how much of that was receivers being hurt, how much of that was offensive linemen being hurt. It's hard to do a lot of things when you only have a second to think about what you want to do and no one really to throw to either.
Yeah, and I think ultimately for all the reasons, we're talking about, this is a good opportunity for a clean break between Arnold and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not tried to please the big 5-star quarterback if he's ultimately not their best option next year, and Arnold gets a fresh start to try to go somewhere we could maybe reach that 5-star height, if you will, in this career.
Absolutely. And for Arnold, I mean, the opportunities he's going to have, I would think, in the portal would be big. I mean, he is a 5-star kid. The talent was clearly there. He was the number 4 quarterback in the 2023 cycle. There's a whole lot of other things that, coaches are going to evaluate. They'd see that the talent is there. It's just, can you get that out of him now? Or is he, some of it I think was more of a mental thing at some point than anything else when you pile everything that had been going on. But of course, talking about it from Arnold's side, I would think it's the one school everyone's going to point to right off the bat. That's going to be Mississippi State. Why is that? Be Jeff Lebby, the head coach there. Obviously, he was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma in 2022 and 2023. He recruited Arnold, has a great connection with them. That seems like it would be the likely place he would go to, just if you had to pick a school off the top of your head. But I assume he'll get a lot more offers than that, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, if DJ Uiagalelei could get the offers he did out of the portal and land where he did, despite lack of performance, whatever you want to call it, I assume Jackson Arnold, people are going to look at him and say, hey, you may not be able to tap into the potential, but I can. That's 5-star. There's some pedigree there.
Absolutely. And then that tags into, you go back to the OU side of things. Obviously, to cap out the bowl game, if you will. It'll be Michael Hawkins Jr. starting. If he didn't start, something would go horribly wrong, obviously. Hawkins will have a little bit of experience there, so you'll get to see how he works behind the everything again. Haven't seen him in a while, so it'll be intriguing to see how that all plays out. But then it goes back into the off season. You hire Ben Arbuckle, and the assumption is that's going to be kind of the word of the day. There's a lot of things you have to assume out of this. You would think that means that John Mateer, the quarterback at Washington State, who Arbuckle obviously coached, he's probably going to enter the portal if he hasn't already by the time we're uploading this thing. He's going to come to Oklahoma. I would think that would be the expectation. Obviously, that's not set in stone. He could go wherever, but you would think that would be the likely result of this.
Yeah, you think that message is what's essentially being sent with Arnold transferring because, as Arbuckle hires in, and we'll touch on a minute about what's happening with the rest of the assistant coaches. And this all reads to me that Mateer, at the very least, is going to strongly consider making his way down to Norman and either competing with, Michael Hawkins for the starting job or Hawkins himself maybe leaving town as well soon.
Absolutely. It's going to be wild to continue to see. And you mentioned the other coaches, and that's kind of the next thing I wanted to get into because Parker Thune, George Snow III, whoever you follow on the Oklahoma side of these things, going over to the amazing world that is Twitter sometimes to kind of show you some of what's going on here. Brent Venables, of course, earlier today, it was National Signing Day today, which it's in December now, which is never going to be normal to me. I like kind of having the multiple periods and all that stuff. That's an entire different video. I don't want to sidetrack that here, but Venables confirming that the entire offensive staff will remain the same, with the only change being Ben Arbuckle. And that's something that I could see why you would say that now, because, it's recruiting. You're trying to get kids signed. You're trying to make sure that everyone is staying where they are, and you want that quote-unquote consistency. But most Oklahoma fans, I would believe, you're in one of two camps. And we talked about that a lot in the Arbuckle video anyway. We'll have the link to that in the description, because I think we're mostly going to be saying the same things here. Where if you're Oklahoma, I get some of that when it comes to, wide receivers like Emmett Jones. I don't know how much wide receiver coaching you can do when you're down all of your starting wide receivers. And then even more people get hurt, like a Brennan Thompson or someone like that, to where you're down to wide receivers 7, 8, and 9. You're having to bring in, walk-ons who weren't supposed to be here on the field at this time. And just, okay, it's Jacob Jordan time. Let's see how this works. And it just, it somehow worked out, which is just, a miracle in and of itself. I don't know how much can really be blamed on him. Same with Bill Bedenbaugh, where, yes, the offensive line looked terrible a lot. The South Carolina game and Ole Miss games are absolutely going to come up there as the two shining examples of just giving up sack after sack after sack. But some of that, again, is injuries, and some of that was the promise of the recruiting class this year, which we'll get into that next. There was some positive news out of Oklahoma today. It wasn't a entirely doom or gloom day. And then you get to the other two in the room, and that would be DeMarco Murray at running back, and that would be Joe John Finley coaching the tight ends. And I think everyone would agree, or at least you could get a majority of Sooner fans to agree, Joe John Finley coming back is going to be a weird situation, because that's a guy that, gets tight ends coach, has to become the offensive coordinator for multiple games. And you could see, obviously, you're not wanting him to be the offensive coordinator. That's why you bring in Ben Arbuckle. Everyone knew that was going to happen. There was no way Joe John was going to be OC again. But the tight end room, I mean, it is bad, to put it nicely. It was not good this year at all. Some of that you could say is injury. Some of that you could say other things. But just, at Oklahoma, where you've had good tight ends before, this isn't like a,
great one. Yeah.
Great ones, the room should not be that
Gresham
bad.
was one of my favorite in the modern day, and he was
Exactly.
a stud.
Exactly.
Talk about some of those fullback / tight end hybrids, guys like Trey Miller.
Yep.
I mean, those guys were legit.
Absolutely. I could still see Millard hurtling against Texas now. I mean, it's one of those just core implant memories into my brain. Mark Andrews with his big catches whenever he needed one. Just when you've had great tight ends at Oklahoma, you should have at least one that is serviceable. It doesn't matter if they're a backup or not. You should have one that is able to catch the ball and block. Those are the two main things tight ends are good at, right? I'm not losing
Supposed
my
to be,
mind
yes.
here. It's one of those that just I don't like him coming back, and I hope that he gets a job somewhere else and could continue to be a better coach. I don't want to hate on him forever, but it's just him, and then DeMarco Murray's gotten on a lot of people's nerves this year. A lot of that is just the running back room, and some of that's injuries. And again, you can't really blame a coach for people getting injured, but some of that, you can see some of the comments here even where it's just rotating people around. Some of that is people still mad about that I know personally, Tawi Walker leaving and things like that. People just have their reasons, and I get that. DeMarco, I would say, would be next on the list of, hey, you can recruit, and that's great. Being a recruiting is half the battle, but you got to know when to put guys on the field. You got to know how to teach the fumbling out of them. Taylor Tatum, that was one of his big issues this year, obviously. Same with Arnold, who we already talked about. It's a completely different position, though. I think he'll stay, but he's definitely going to be next on the chopping block if there was going to be one.
Yeah, and we, in the video we did over Coach Arbuckle, that announcement, you even saw in the comment section there where people were kind of like, hey, if you keep some of these guys, that means you think they did a good job. And obviously, or at least it was acceptable. And clearly that wasn't the case. But everybody kind of came to the consensus that the injuries obviously made it almost unfair to evaluate people. I mean, you talked about that a lot. It's really tough to judge at the end of the day, considering all that happened. These individual position coaches. So I think Coach Venables sees that and ultimately decides, hey, I'm going to give everybody another crack. Curious to see if Coach Arbuckle will try to bring in a staffer or two of his own. And you would think him being the OC might get that opportunity. Obviously, it's not going to be a position coach, but maybe there's a quality control coach he wants to bring in, an offensive consultant, something like that that's a little bit more of a non-positional role that could kind of help him look over things, which Coach Venables did that when he first came in at OU as head coach, right? Uh, Installed some of his guys in that manner. So curious to see if that's what develops. And the other interesting note when it comes to the bowl season is that it was announced Joe John Finley is going to call the plays for the bowl game. So adds another wrinkle of weirdness, I guess, right? We've been using that term because that means it might be a Michael Hawkins, Joe John Finley combo as far as quarterback OC. So bowl season will bring some of these answers, right? But I still, even then, think we may not have all of them. I think we'll have to see how the full, really, winter plays out in terms of the transfer portal and how some of these things finalize.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. I feel like you've got to, as much as you don't like saying it, you're going to have to wait until after the bowl game to see even more of this play out. Once we kind of get into January, even, I think you could say mid to late January, I would think most of this would be sorted out in terms of who's leaving, who's staying, all sorts of things like that. But that's kind of the cycle of college football now. You would think you'd have a clear-cut answer. It is signing day. You'd think that, but that's simply not how this works.
Yeah, it's a year-round deal now, right? Almost 24/7 news cycle. College football is going the way of the NFL. The NFL's mastered that, and yeah, college football is kind of inching its way towards that point.
Yeah, well, we've been, I don't want to say negative for the most part, but it's been a negative news day of the two things we have talked about. Let's go to something positive at least. End on a high note because Oklahoma did have the major recruiting win today. Of course, the Bill Bedenbaugh, the offensive line coach at Oklahoma, he was a guy that a lot of people had kind of given him a lot of, how do I best want to put this? A lot of flack for, a lot of, hey, what are you doing? Why is it taking until 9-10 games into the season? Why do we not have a competent offensive line? What are we doing here? This is Oklahoma. I thought this guy was supposed to be a good coach. And this is why you stick around at least on this side. And I had my complaints. You've heard me gripe about it even since the Houston game. But this is why sometimes it helps pay off. When you get guys like Michael Fasusi, 5-star offensive tackle out of Louisville, Texas, home of the Fighting Farmers. I just like saying that name. Passing by that water tower on the way to Dallas. Just absolutely love saying it. But this is where that helps. Bill Bedenbaugh, a guy, what's he known for? He's known for developing offensive linemen and getting them into the NFL. That's what he's always been able to do. You get 5-star guys that can come in and do that, there's a good chance Fasusi starts next year. With the talent he has, you can get something like that.
Yeah, and that would be huge because I think he's got the potential to step in and really stabilize things quickly. And we know the offensive line needs it. There's a lot of won't go as far as to say disappointment, but there's a lot of underperformances in terms of some of the individuals when it came to that offensive line this year. And, you've got a crop of freshmen that were essentially redshirting this year that I think when you pair them with a Fasusi could come in and really shake things up next year for that OU offensive line and kind of heal things a little quick.
Yeah, I mean, you go by On3, he's the number 2 offensive tackle in the 2025 class. And I do want to talk about this a little bit. He had maybe, I don't want to say this is where college football's heading, but it was kind of funny today. A live stream of Fasusi committing to OU had 35,000 people watching at 2:30 in the afternoon. What are we doing here on a Wednesday? This is where, and some of that is just kind of funny because this was a recruiting war between Oklahoma and Texas. That was the big deal. Around the time of the Oklahoma-Alabama game, Texas was hosting Fasusi. A lot of the Texas fans thought, oh my goodness, are we going to do it again? Are we going to steal another player from Oklahoma and watch their recruiting class implode or something like that? And it didn't happen. And some of the Texas people had a meltdown today, which is just kind of fun. Why are you melting down? I thought we were terrible in 6-6 and we're bad, Tyler. I don't know why they're melting down so much. They're trying to play for an SEC title game. Like, life is good. Why are you mad about one guy?
Yeah, they should, chill, get over it a little bit. They'll be okay. But no, that's a big loss for them, right? They really, especially at the end, kind of thought, oh, we got a chance. We got a chance to swoop in and get them. And Fasusi kind of shut that door. So interesting at the very least, and huge, huge for the Sooners because leading up to signing day, especially in the last couple days, despite the announcement of Coach Arbuckle coming in to be the OC, you still had couple flips in terms of receivers, right, in the class, and a couple of decommitments. So, especially on that offensive side of the ball. So, it was kind of shaping up. I don't want to say to be, oh no, we're going to lose Fasusi too, but it felt for a moment this could be teetering in a bit of a bad direction for OU.
Yeah, I would say if you were to vibe check the OU fan base at 1:55 p.m. today versus 2:45 p.m. today, we went from, guys, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this too. Okay, back to the cautious optimism that I think everyone's kind of waiting to see how next year plays. Though I'm sure by the time we get to the Illinois State game, everyone will be excited in August. That's always how this thing works. But
yeah, talk ourselves into the Sooners are potential SEC champs and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, it'll happen. And of course, though, folks, as always, we do enjoy this. I do want to end this on a positive note. Thank you for subscribing. I mean, seriously.
Hey, we got to 100,
108 now. Go. I mean, it's one of those that, for the bottom of my heart, thank you. It's hard to have 100 of anything except dollars. You kind of need 100 of those. But
I know sometimes it's hard to get 100.
Sometimes it is to get 100 of those as well. But, truly, thank you so much for that. We do really appreciate it. We really do. Thank you for the comments and the likes and all of that stuff. Feel free again to, if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you made it this long, we do sincerely appreciate you watching all the way through. Because next time, Tyler, we'll do one of these videos again, but we got to do one on Oklahoma State because, my goodness, we talk about how bad things have been at Oklahoma. Things might be getting worse at Oklahoma State. We'll have to see, but things might be getting bad over in Stillwater as well.
Yeah, obviously there's news today with their coordinators, and then there's potentially another meeting set out for Friday. So we're kind of waiting to really dive into that. Probably until this weekend. So if you're an Oklahoma State fan, might want to keep that one in mind and most likely see that come out Saturday, maybe Sunday, and then you have a chance to join in that conversation, which should be really interesting as well.
Yeah, or if you're an Oklahoma fan who just wants to laugh at Oklahoma State, I know there's some out there. Yeah, you just want to say, hey, LMAO, what the heck happened? Why aren't we playing Bedlam? At us, play Bedlam. What are we doing here, Tyler? But
for sure.
Folks, as always, thank you for watching. We do sincerely appreciate it. One more time, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to always be notified when new videos come out, and feel free to leave a comment down below. It only takes a minute or two out of your day to do all those things, and we do appreciate it a lot. But folks, until next time, have a good one, everybody.